Hey y'all, Austin here with Our World Media. Welcome back to another book review, guys. I'm going to start off by apologizing. I'm kind of having to keep the noise level to a minimum here. My wife is in the other room trying to sleep, but I need to knock out a couple book reviews, so I'm going to give it my best shot and see, and hopefully you guys can hear me. Hopefully you don't have to turn the volume up too much. But let's get into it though, guys. What book am I going to be reviewing? Well, if you can tell by the title, this is The Eye of the World, the first book in the Wheel of Time series. A little bit of background for me on this series. I have known about this series for quite a few years, specifically because a couple bigger channels on YouTube were talking about it and whatnot. Obviously I've heard the comparisons between this series and like uh, Lord of the Rings and this and that. It's up there. I feel like with Lord of the Rings, with Malazan, with series Song of Ice and Fire, Lord of the Rings, again, it's up there with some of the bigger, more well known series. Um, so again, I've known about it for quite a while, but it's always been a little daunting for me, to be honest with you guys. Again, it's like I think it's a 15 book series, and most of the books are well over 800 pages. So again, it's a little daunting of a series to try to pick up. So I've kind of kept it on the back burner. And then my buddy Dustin Neely had said, "Hey, if you want to do a fellowship or buddy read, I'd be more than happy to oblige and do that with you." And so I said, "Okay, let's do it." I accepted his invitation or offer, if you will, and we said, "Okay, here's what we'll do. We'll read the first book in February, take a month off." Pick up the next book in April, and so that's the plan for this series. And that's kind of just a little bit of the background that I wanted to give to you guys. I'm going to be openly honest, guys. I am not, a seasoned fantasy book reader guy. I typically read westerns or, action books or, thrillers, what have you. So I'm a little out of my element here. So just kind of bear with me and hopefully I'll get, the feel for doing a review over a fantasy series. But let's get into it, guys. Again, this is a buddy read or fellowship read, if you will. Dustin has already posted his video. I highly recommend go check it out, And I made this comment in my weekly update, was it yesterday or the day before? Dustin's review of the book, he is filled with so much knowledge that I highly recommend that you go check out his video because there's references that he makes that this book references in Dune or Lord of the Rings specifically, or and he has so much knowledge that I don't have, specifically certain meanings for certain words in here and how they relate to other stuff. So again, highly recommend go check out his review. But let's get into it, guys. Again, we're about 3 minutes in, and here I am not really talking about the book yet. So let's get into it. What is The Eye of the World about? Essentially, The Eye of the World, it is a what's the term I'm looking for? I do apologize, guys. It's kind of the unsung hero, I guess, is the best way. The farm boy turned hero trope. I guess it's a trope at this point. Essentially, we start off in this small little town that has a kind of a Hobbit feel, Lord of the Rings feel, the Shire feel, if you will. We're introduced to quite a few characters. We're introduced to Rand, Rand al'Thor, I believe is his name, Mat, Perrin, uh, I think it's Nagin, Edwin. Those are the Two Rivers, folks, I believe is the town name. I do apologize if I got it wrong, but I think that's it. Again, there's a lot of places referenced in this book, but those are the characters that were introduced in this town. And long story short, stuff starts to happen in this town. A big event happens. They're gearing up for this like summer event, summer festival, whatever you want to call it, and something happens, a big catastrophic event happens that they have to kind of band together, and they are ushered off by what are their names? Lan, and I forget what the name is, Al Said, however you want to say it. And then there's Tom, who I'm not gonna lie is my favorite character in this book. Me and Dustin were kind of talking about this book and whatnot back and forth in a conversation here on YouTube, and I told Dustin, I said, first scene of Tom, us being introduced to him, favorite character. He's got to be my favorite character. But again, this is the typical, yeah, we have this item, we kind of have to get somewhere. And so, they're kind of ushered off and we get to explore this world along with the people from the two rivers. We are introduced to quite a cast of characters. There's just so many to mention, in all honesty. You probably could spend 45 minutes just talking about the different people, the different, regions they go, the towns, just the stuff that they see. So we get to follow them along on this trip to essentially get to a safe haven and whatnot. And, I did see quite a few nods or winks to the Lord of the Rings. I'm not going to say they're ripoffs or anything like that. I think Mr. Jordan was paying homage to the Lord of the Rings in this. We do get a part where the characters, without spoiling anything, there's a part where the characters are kind of split apart for a little while, like in Lord of the Rings. So again, and they're being chased. Again, this is very, very, I feel like, from what I understand, this is a very much of a trope in this series. But again, we're just following these characters along as they're trying to get to this oasis or safe haven. And so essentially that's what this whole book is about, is, the events that happen that lead them to need to get to the safe haven, and just all the stuff that happens, in the middle and whatnot. Kind of getting into, what didn't I like versus what did I like. I think the good outweighs the bad, but there are still some bad in this. I honestly think something that I didn't really like, and I don't know really how to describe it. I've been thinking about the last couple of days since I finished this book. You know, I enjoyed the book, but there was times when I would, sit down and I'd go to pick it up, and for whatever reason, it took me a little while. It took me a chapter or two to get into the groove of things and really be kind of just sucked into this world, and just really just not want to stop reading. I'd probably say the first third of this book, or first quarter, I'd probably say, is kind of slow. We're setting up character build and whatnot, and then the second part, picks up a little bit. Third part kind of slows down a little bit, and then that last part, it just, again, and Dustin pointed on this as well. The pacing of this book, why I think the pacing, was a little, in my opinion, I think it was a little better than what Dustin thought. I do have to agree with Dustin that it was a little unbalanced. It would be slog kind of, fast, 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 slog, fast, 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 slog, and then that last half was just, you didn't want to put the book down. Again, this is a series that you kind of have to use your imagination for the battle scenes, or the fighting scenes, or the action scenes, whatever you want to call it. Mr. Jordan's not going to be, telling you this character sliced through the air and set limb off of their, enemy. He doesn't do that, so you kind of have to use your imagination a little bit. So if you're used to, reading books where it kind of is a little graphic, this is not going to have that in here. Again, this is, I want to say this is probably more directed towards, and I hate to say it, but like older teenagers, like people that are, they're not teenagers, but young adults, or whatever you want to call it, people in like their 15 and over, I guess, just kind of something that's not going to be too graphic, if you will. And I hope I'm not offending anybody by saying that. But again, I really did enjoy this book enough that I am going to pick up the next book in the series. And I even told, Dustin, that it's going to be hard not to want to pick the book up. And that kind of leads into the good stuff, the good things, the stuff that I did enjoy about this book. I want to pick up the next book as soon as I put book one down. I don't think I was burned out. I think the last part of the last third of the book or quarter of the book was so quick paced, fast paced that it made me want to pick up book number two. Obviously, I can't do that. We're taking March off and picking book number two up in April, but that is something I will say, stick with it. Again, it is a slower start of a book, you know. Something else that I did enjoy was just the slight humorous scenes in this, specifically with Tom. And you'll know what I'm talking about when you read that scene. When we're first introduced to him, instantly made him my favorite character in this series so far. A couple other things that I will say that I really enjoyed that I didn't see coming was a couple, subplots that are happening with some not the main character, but kind of some minor characters. I really enjoy them, and I can't wait to see where they go. Obviously, there's going to be love interest in something in a series like this, and I don't typically care for that, but this one has my interest kind of peaked. I'm very curious to see how this works out. So the fact that Mr. Jordan did that, I have to tip my hat to the man because, I don't think that's ever happened really. Maybe once in, I think it was the Red Rising series or something like that. But again, guys, like I said, I really did enjoy this. I just read it on my Kindle, and I think that's another thing. It's kind of a nitpick thing just for everybody to know. There are a couple longer chapters in this book than what at least I'm used to. Not by much, but just so you know, be prepared, I think. Just know if you're kind of half asleep, kind of tired, I probably would not start the next chapter because you're going to stay up to try and get that chapter finished. Because I will get, and another thing I will give Mr. Jordan this, you don't want to stop reading it halfway through a chapter. You don't want to stop reading a quarter of the way through the chapter. You want to finish the chapter to see, because a lot of these chapters, well, they don't, leave you hanging on like a cliffhanger or something like that. You want to see what's going to happen next. You want to follow up with the characters and see what their travels and adventures bring. But again, and the way this book ended has my interest very, very piqued because I am very curious what the direction that he's going to take is. A lot of people say book two, he kind of brings it into its own. So I'm very interested and curious to see. Again, I did see the slight nods or homage that he paid to Lord of the Rings. I don't think it was as obvious or as much as what I was led on to believe or think. But again, I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the slight nods to those because, especially the first part of the book, it felt, again, like the Shire, it felt like just comfort. Having read The Lord of the Rings quite a few times, The Hobbit, I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I've watched the movies, I couldn't tell you how many times, and that's kind of what it felt like. So if that's something, a series that you really like, you will, feel at home, at least for the first half, like the characters are, or feel, because again, it feels like the Shire. Give me 1 second here, guys. Sorry, I get my sparkling water in me. But again, if you're not somebody who's a fantasy fan, I would say give this book a try. And Dustin pointed this out as well. The way this book ends, you could read this as a one-off and be done with it. And you're like, it's not for me. That's fine. That can be it. But again, I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope maybe some people will decide to join us. I think you have like 5.5 weeks at this point to join us to finish book one. So if you've been on the fence about it, there are 3 of us at this point. There's me, there's Dustin, and then there's Bing, who are reading this and have finished book 1. So we are, hoping to pick up some more people along the way. If not, it's fine. We're enjoying the conversations amongst the 3 of us. But if you want to join, feel free. If you've read the series before, but you want to get, the viewpoints of, people who are just reading the series for the first time, drop comments down below. Again, guys, super excited to be finally, having started this series and continuing on with it. But again, guys, I do appreciate every single one of you that stops by. Y'all have a good one.